Spirit of the North is a third-person adventure puzzle game that sees you playing as a fox with newly gained spiritual powers. Taking place in a world that feels highly reminiscent of some of the landscapes you'd see in Iceland, the game tells a thought-provoking narrative that is widely open to speculation and interpretation. Much of the story is vague, and that's due to the absence of dialogue and narration. The only pieces of storytelling present in the game either come from short cutscenes or the murals and wall carvings you can find scattered across each level. What you do know is that a civilization used to thrive in this world, but some unknown event tore it apart, leaving rubble and remains, but even that is relatively unclear. I'm not saying this is a bad thing though, and in fact I actually quite like it. The levels contain enough world building in them to get you intrigued, and the actual gist of the story is pretty easy to grasp. The opening segments have you follow a ghostly apparition of a fox that takes you through an expanse of snowy plains, followed by a series of icy caves. While on this trail, you come across some kind of hostile fauna, infecting anything it touches. This encounter results in the main character sustaining serious injuries. Following this event, both your character and the spirit fox infuse together, healing you and giving you unique spiritual abilities. These start off rather tame, interacting with various rock carvings and opening doors, but eventually these evolve into much more impactful skills, such as dashing and entering the spirit world. But I'll get to those in a bit. For now, I'll just focus on the story. Spirit of the North doesn't have any quest markers or objectives stated on the screen. The only thing guiding you is a red trail in the sky that leads to the top of a tall mountain. This is essentially where you'll be heading throughout the game, but the way to get there is less than straightforward, and will require you to do some puzzle solving and navigating. The fauna that I mentioned earlier has made its way across the land, seeping into the ground, corrupting anything it touches. Areas infected by this will usually need to be cleansed before you can progress through, so part of the story becomes curing the land of this widespread disease. Both of these objectives, travelling to the mountain, removing the invasive fauna, are not goals that are explicitly stated to the player, but are just assumed as you play through the game. This hazy approach to storytelling might off-put some people, but it's not too dissimilar to games like Journey or Abzu, so if you like those games, I don't see any reason why this wouldn't appeal to you. Just like those titles, the presentation is one of Spirit of the North's greatest strengths. It's paced really well, there are plenty of sequences that are nothing short of stunning, and the world itself is really captivating to explore. The more wall carvings you find, the better understanding you have of the world and the old civilization that used to thrive here. Spirit of the North is a game about moving forward rather than looking back, and while its meaning is widely open for interpretation, experiencing the journey up to the mountain was nothing short of a captivating ride. Like I said before, the design of the environments is clearly based on Iceland's landscapes, something that's almost immediately noticeable thanks to the vast hillscapes and rock formations. And because the store page says so, that's a pretty good giveaway too. Just like the country they're based on, the levels are beautiful to look at. Despite being linear, most of them are quite open, with multiple pathways leading to the same destination. As a result, it can be pretty easy to lose yourself. The levels filled with ruins were some of the most interesting ones for me, since they'd usually contain tidbits of lore, but also because they're stunning to look at due to their immaculate detailing. The designs of all the 3D models are really good, as well as the quality of texturing. I thought the snowy mountains were a bit weaker compared to the other ones, but you don't really spend that much time there, so I didn't really mind. One thing I really liked was the game's attention to detail. Some surfaces are loose and will start to fall when the player lands on them, and the physics behind the fall looks really realistic. When your character walks out of water, it will shake the water off before continuing, which I thought was pretty cool. Then there's this weird black sludge thing you encounter later on where, if you walk through it, remains of the sludge stay on your character for a while, and the amount that's on you increases the more you go through it. Just these cool little features that make the game feel more immersive. There's plenty of them, and they're great. Most of the time you'll be exploring through the countryside. The distance to reach the mountain is a great one, but oftentimes I forgot that the mountain was my destination, simply because of how engrossing the levels are. The atmosphere that permeates through them pulls you in almost instantly, and the gentle soundtrack accompanying them is brilliantly composed. Furthermore, They're just as entertaining to play through as they are to observe, whether you're parkouring your way through stone structures or using elements of the environment to progress. Because there's no markers, it's up to you to figure out what the next step is, and this is done in such a way that tests you and makes you explore the area, but not to the degree that it becomes boring and confusing. It can become tedious, however, and that's not a fault of the game's design. The problem with finding solutions to reaching the next area is the abundant presence of invisible walls, trying desperately to hinder your progression. It's baffling how many there are, especially ones that seemingly have no reason to be there whatsoever. I understand that the developers want you to go a specific way, and that's fine, but constraining the player's ability to go from point A to point B in the way that it does makes no sense to me, even more so in some of the more complex areas. Does this have a severe negative impact on the levels as a whole? No, but they do take you out of the immersion, and they can turn what should be a relatively calming experience into a frustrating series of chores. When invisible barriers are not making your life a living hell, Spirit of the North is actually quite fun to play. It has a simple but effective gameplay loop that does just enough to keep you engaged while also not breaking any boundaries. You'll frequently bump into a block in the road that you'll have to overcome. This can be a sealed door or some of the toxic fauna that I mentioned earlier obstructing the way forward. How you get through these challenges relies completely on your investigative abilities. Sometimes your spirit companion will give you hints on where to look, usually when the game realizes that you're struggling on what to do next. I didn't really need the help of the spirit guide though, as, for the most part, these sections are pretty straightforward. But they are varied enough that they don't become a drag, and I appreciate that, throughout the game, it introduces new facets to these challenges, such as ancient contraptions that unlock new pathways, or using the environment itself to boost you up to a higher vantage point. As you progress through Spirit of the North, you will unlock abilities that play directly into these obstructions blocking the way forward. The Spirit Bark, for example, allows you to cleanse away sources of those toxic fauna, while Spirit Form allows you to enter the spirit world, passing through previously impassable areas. While these new tricks aren't exactly groundbreaking, they do offer something new to the table, and they're satisfying to use. Part of your duties as a spirit fox involve guiding lost spirits into the spirit world. In the context of how this translates to gameplay, well, you're presented with an optional side objective that has you locating all of these spirits and allowing them to move on from the land of the living. In order for this to happen, you must find a staff that belongs to them, then place it next to them. It's pretty simple, but it acts as a type of collectible system, for people interested in that sort of thing. I didn't much care for it, but I didn't have any issues with it either. Everything I've said about the gameplay up until this point, I have absolutely no problem with. There are, however, a couple of criticisms I have of things that bothered me while I was playing. The first, and definitely the biggest of the two issues, is the clunky character movement. As it stands, it can be unresponsive, especially when you're in the air, at which point you basically have no control over the character at all. I will say that this complaint does tie into the invisible walls situation a bit, as the two really don't go hand in hand with each other, but even just climbing over rocks or running alongside walls can make your character freak out for a moment, or send them going off the wrong direction entirely. It's not awful, and if the route from point A to point B is a relatively simple one, you're probably not going to notice any issues. But in the more cramped, close-quarter levels, it can become finicky, and when the way through one of those aforementioned roadblocks is a complex one, you'll likely end up fighting the system to get it to work with you. The second main problem I have is the save system, which, like the player movement, is unreliable. The game uses an auto-save system that triggers when you go through this weird gate thing, and while there are a few of them, the distance between some of them is too much. An example of this is at the beginning of the game, before you infuse with the Spirit Fox. There's this really long section that you limp through at a snail's pace. The first time I played it, I got through that section, made it through the cave exit to the outside world, and opened the doors for the next section. At that point, I decided to leave it there and continue at another time. When I got back, it sent me all the way back to the beginning of the limping section. Granted, this was before I knew how the save system worked, but I just don't like the way that it's made. I'm not big on any game exclusively using an autosave system, but this one in particular would have really benefited from just being able to save your progress manually, instead of having to be constrained to these gates. It might not be for everyone, but I really enjoyed Spirit of the North. Its beautiful and detailed depictions of the Icelandic landscape, combined with a touching story and a well-composed score, all come together to form a remarkable title. Clocking in at around 4.5 hours, the game is exactly as long as it needs to be. It may not offer a wide variety of mechanics, but what's there is more than good enough. The puzzles are challenging, but not to the point where they trip up the pacing, and they keep you engaged. If it had just a bit more development time, some of the issues that hold it back, such as the clunky character movement and the invisible walls, could have been ironed out. But nevertheless, Spirit of the North is absolutely worth your time and investment, and I have no trouble in recommending it to anyone. And that is that. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. This is the first video review that I've ever done, so a lot of this is very new to me. If you have any feedback though, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. I'm hoping to review more indie games on here, so if that's something you're interested in, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. Until then, see you next time. Bye.